For the first month, I lived inside a fairy tale. Liam's family, the Astors, didn't just welcome me, they absorbed me. As an orphan who'd spent her life bouncing between state homes, their sprawling mansion felt less like a house and more like a different planet. A planet made of marble floors, hushed footsteps of servants, and the constant low hum of generational wealth. It started with a shopping trip. Not the kind where you look at price tags, the kind where the Astor's personal stylist, a severe-looking man named Julian, took over a wing of a high-end department store just for me. "Mrs. Astor has a particular vision for you, dear," he said, his voice smooth as silk. He swept past racks of vibrant colors, his long fingers dismissing reds and blues and greens without a second glance. He pulled out dress after dress, all in shades of white, cream, and pale ivory. "They're beautiful," I said, touching the fabric of a snow-white dress. "But is there a reason for only these colors?" Julian gave me a thin smile. "Mrs. Astor believes in purity of presentation. It allows one's best features to stand out." It sounded a little weird, like something a cult leader would say, but I was swimming in a sea of generosity I'd never known. I wasn't about to question the color palette, so I smiled and nodded and let them dress me like a porcelain doll. The real shift happened a week later, during one of the Astor's formal family dinners. The dining room was lit by a crystal chandelier that dripped light onto the long, polished table. Liam sat beside me, his hand resting on my knee. Across from us, his mother, Eleanor Astor, watched me with an unnerving stillness. She was an elegant woman with silver hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch the skin of her face. After the main course was cleared, she rose from her seat, holding a small velvet box. "Ilara, my dear." The table went quiet. All eyes were on me. I felt my cheeks flush. She walked around the table and stopped behind me. "Every woman who joins our family is given a token, a symbol of her place with us." She opened the box. Inside, resting on black satin, was a necklace. It was a simple, solid band of what looked like platinum, seamless and smooth, with a single polished black stone set in the center. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "It has a long history," Eleanor said, her voice low. She lifted it from the box. "It chose you, Ilara." She placed it around my neck. The metal was cool against my skin. It settled perfectly into the hollow of my throat. I reached up to feel the clasp, but my fingers found nothing, just a continuous, unbroken circle of metal. A clever design, I thought, some rich people's secret. "Thank you," I said, my voice a little shaky. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," she said, her hand resting on my shoulder for a moment too long. Her fingers were cold. That night, back in the guest suite that was bigger than my old apartment, I decided to take it off before my shower. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, my fingers tracing the cool band. I searched for a clasp, a hinge, a hidden button. Nothing. I tried to slide it over my head, but it was too snug. It didn't choke me, it just fit perfectly. After 10 minutes of twisting and pulling, a patch of skin on the back of my neck was red and raw. The necklace hadn't moved a millimeter. A little flicker of unease went through me. It was probably just some trick mechanism. I was new to this world of puzzle box jewelry. I'll just ask Liam in the morning, I told myself. The next morning, I found Liam on the terrace, reading the paper. The sun was bright, the coffee smelled incredible. My panic from the night before seemed stupid in the daylight. "Hey," I said, sitting next to him. "This is going to sound silly, but I can't figure out how to take this necklace off." He glanced at it, then back to his paper, and smiled. "Oh, that? You don't." I waited for the punchline. It didn't come. "What do you mean, I don't?" "It's a sign of acceptance," he said, his tone perfectly matter-of-fact, like he was explaining that the sky is blue. He didn't offer to help. He didn't even seem to understand why I'd want to. "But "But," I started, the word catching in my throat. He folded his paper, leaned over, and put a single finger to my lips, silencing me. "You'll get used to it," he said, his smile never wavering. I stood in front of the mirror again later, staring at the thing on my neck. The cool metal felt heavier now. His words echoed in my head. "It's part of you now." This wasn't a gift. It was a brand, a collar. The overwhelming generosity of the Astor family suddenly felt possessive. I wasn't a guest being welcomed. I was a thing being acquired. In a small act of defiance, I grabbed a bobby pin from the counter and tried to find a seam to pry at the setting of the stone. The pin bent. The platinum didn't even have a scratch on it. As I stared, defeated, my eyes focused on the black stone. Under the bright bathroom lights, it didn't reflect my face. It just absorbed the light, a perfect circle of nothing. Then, for just a second, it flickered. The blackness shifted, and I saw a reflection that wasn't mine. It was a room, old and dusty, with furniture covered in white sheets. It was there for less than a heartbeat, then it was gone, leaving only the deep, impenetrable black. My own heart started to hammer against my ribs. What the hell did I just see? That night at dinner, things got stranger. A new dish was served first, a thick, dark soup. It smelled earthy, almost like wet soil after a storm. "A family specialty," Liam explained, nudging my bowl toward me. "It's very good for your constitution." I hesitated, but everyone was watching. I took a spoonful. The taste was bizarre. It was rich, savory, but with a sharp, metallic tang that coated my tongue. And the strangest thing happened. As soon as I swallowed, a deep, gnawing hunger erupted in my stomach. I didn't just want more, I needed it. I ate the entire bowl, fast, almost greedily. I could feel Liam's eyes on me, a small smile on his face. As I finished the last spoonful, I felt a faint, almost unnoticeable warmth spread from the necklace on my throat. The rules, the necklace, the food, it was all starting to feel less like quirky rich people traditions and more like a process, a procedure. I wasn't just enjoying their hospitality anymore. I was observing, watching. I couldn't sleep that night. The house was silent around me, but my mind was screaming. Around 2 in the morning, I slipped out of bed and made my way downstairs to the library. It was a massive 2-story room lined with thousands of books. My eyes landed on a set of thick, leather-bound photo albums on a lower shelf. My hands were trembling as I pulled one out. It was heavy, the cover embossed with the Astor family crest. I sat on the floor and opened it. The first pages were filled with faded, sepia-toned photographs from 100 years ago. Generations of Astors staring out with stern, serious faces. I kept turning. A pattern started to form. In every generation, there was a photo of the Astor heir with a young woman. A woman who was never in any other family photos. A woman who always looked a little out of place, a little overwhelmed. And every single one of them was wearing my necklace. I flipped faster, the pages whispering in the quiet room. My breath hitched. I got to the last few pages, the photos now in color. There, from maybe 20 years ago, was a smiling woman with bright, hopeful eyes. She was beautiful, and around her neck was the seamless platinum band with its black stone. Below the photo, a neat cursive script read, "Victoria, the perfect host." Host? The word slammed into me. I shut the album with a loud thud that echoed in the library. My blood ran cold. Host for what? I scrambled to put the album back, my hands fumbling. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the darkened window. I instinctively looked down at the necklace. The black stone seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. For just a fraction of a second, it caught my reflection. It was my face, looking back at me. But I wasn't scared. I was smiling. The smiling face in the window wasn't me, not the real me. It was some other thing wearing my skin, looking out with a placid satisfaction that made my stomach clench. I slammed the photo album shut, the sound booming in the dead quiet library. My heart was trying to punch its way out of my chest. Host. The perfect host. I scrambled to my feet, shoving the heavy book back onto the shelf. My hands were shaking. I had to get back to my room before someone found me. Every shadow seemed to stretch. Every creak of the floorboards was an accusation. I didn't breathe until I was back in the guest suite with the door clicked shut behind me. The smiling reflection was gone, replaced by my own wide, terrified eyes in the mirror. Sleep didn't come. It ambushed me. One moment I was staring at the ceiling, the next I was walking through a garden I'd never seen. Sunlight warmed my arms. I was wearing a white dress, the kind with a dropped waist from old black and white movies. I could smell the heavy scent of roses and feel the crunch of gravel under thin-soled shoes. It felt real, too real. I woke up with a gasp, the scent of roses still clinging to the inside of my nose. It happened again the next night. This time, I was in a grand ballroom. A jazz band was playing a fast, frantic tune. A man was spinning me around, his hand firm on my back. I could feel the sweat on my skin, the ache in my muscles from dancing. When I woke up, a melody I'd never heard before was stuck in my head, a phantom ache in my calves. That morning, at breakfast, I was humming it without thinking. Liam looked up from his coffee. "That's an old one," he said, a pleasant smile on his face. "Where'd you hear that?" A chill went down my spine. I don't know, just popped into my head. "It was my great-grandmother's favorite," he said, then went back to his newspaper as if he'd just commented on the weather. My blood went cold. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't curious. He was confirming something. The third night was the worst. The dream was a nightmare. I was running, stumbling through the dark woods behind the mansion. It was me, but it wasn't. It was Victoria from the photograph. I could feel her panic, a raw animal terror that was so strong it was my own. My lungs burned. Branches whipped at my face. Behind me, I could hear men calling her name. "Victoria!" The sound was distorted, echoing through the trees. I jolted awake, tangled in my sheets, drenched in sweat. My heart was hammering against my ribs. But the sound didn't stop. Victoria. It was a whisper, faint but clear. And it wasn't coming from outside. It was in the room with me. I clamped my hands over my ears, squeezing my eyes shut. After a few seconds, it faded into the oppressive silence of the house. Shit, shit, shit. They weren't just dreams. They were memories. The necklace, this goddamn collar, was feeding them into my head. It wasn't just my body they were preparing. They were overriding me, pasting someone else's life over mine. I stumbled into the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face, gasping. I looked up at the mirror. For a split second, the eyes looking back weren't mine. They held a flicker of someone else's terror, Victoria's terror, before my own reflection snapped back into place. I had to get out. I had to call someone. My phone, my laptop, they'd been acting weird for days. The Wi-Fi would cut out whenever I tried to search for anything about the Astors. Calls to my one friend from the foster system, Sarah, would drop after a few seconds. Liam had just waved it off. The price of living so far out in the country, I guess. The signal's terrible. It wasn't terrible signal. It was a cage. I tried to call Sarah again, my fingers fumbling with the screen. It rang once, then a recorded voice said the number was no longer in service. A number I'd had for 10 years. My hands started to tremble again. This isn't happening. I took a deep breath. Okay, think. Later that day, I saw one of the maids leave her phone charging on a kitchen counter while she went to the pantry. This was my chance. I snatched it, my heart pounding, and hurried into a small washroom. I quickly typed Sarah's number. It started ringing. Hope, sharp and painful, shot through me. "Hello?" Sarah's voice. "Thank God." Sarah, it's me, Alara. Listen, something is wrong. Really wrong. Alara? Whoa, you sound weird. Are you okay? No, I'm not. This family, they're not what they seem. I'm having these dreams, Sarah, about this woman named Victoria, and... Whoa, slow down, she interrupted, and there was a strange note in her voice, a kind of gentle confusion. What are you talking about? Victoria is your middle name. You told me you were named after your great aunt or something, remember? Back when we were kids? The phone almost slipped from my hand. A buzzing started in my ears. No, my middle name isn't Victoria. I don't have a great aunt. I'm an orphan. My file was blank. What are you talking about, Sarah? That's not true. Alara, are you feeling all right? You've always hated that name. Don't you remember? My blood turned to ice. It wasn't just feeding me memories. It was changing them. It was reaching back in time and rewriting my life, even for the people outside this house. The cage wasn't just the mansion walls. It was reality itself. I hung up without another word. My mind was reeling. I couldn't trust my own past anymore. I couldn't trust anything. My only option was to find a way out, a physical escape. I had to find proof, something tangible, something they couldn't explain away. That evening, the family announced they were going into town for a charity gala. Liam asked me to come, but I feigned a terrible headache. Eleanor looked at me, her eyes lingering on the necklace. Rest, dear. It's important you keep your strength up. The moment their car disappeared down the long driveway, I moved. I knew where I had to go. Mr. Astor's study. It was the one room in the house that was always kept locked. I'd seen him go in there every morning. I used a bobby pin from my hair, my hands slick with sweat. I'd learned a few stupid tricks in the group homes. After a few agonizing minutes of scraping and jiggling, I heard a soft click. The door swung open. The office was dark, smelling of old leather and cigar smoke. I didn't turn on the lights, using my phone's flashlight instead. I went straight for the large mahogany desk. The top drawers were just business papers. I pulled on the bottom right drawer. Locked, of course. I jammed the bent bobby pin into the keyhole again. This lock was tougher, but finally it gave way with a groan. Inside, there were no business papers. There were manila folders, a dozen of them. My light fell on the first name, typed neatly on the tab. Victoria Ann Gable. My breath caught in my throat. I opened it. It was a medical file, charts, blood analysis reports, sleep cycle monitoring, detailed down to the minute, notes on diet and weight gain. It was the file of a lab rat, or livestock. I pulled out another, Charlotte Dubois. Same thing. Another, Amelia Chen. The same cold clinical data. Then I found it. A new folder, tucked at the back. Ilara. I opened it. It was mostly empty. My name, my supposed birthday, a few initial entries on my weight and blood type. It was a work in progress. My work in progress. Behind my file was a small leather-bound journal. It was old, the pages yellowed. I opened it to the first page. The handwriting was elegant, precise. The entity requires a new vessel each cycle. Preparation of the host must begin immediately. Purity of the bloodline is paramount. No contamination from outside lineage can be tolerated. Orphan subjects with no ties to the world are ideal. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. It was all there. The cold, hard truth. I wasn't a girlfriend. I wasn't a guest. I was a subject, an ingredient. The click of the study door opening behind me was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. I spun around, dropping the journal. Liam stood in the doorway, the hall light behind him making him a silhouette. The warm, loving smile I'd fallen for was completely gone. In its place was an expression of deep, weary disappointment. "I'd hoped you wouldn't find this," he said, his voice quiet. He stepped inside and closed the door, plunging the room back into near darkness, save for the single beam from my phone on the floor. "The preparation isn't complete," he said, his voice flat. "You've just made everything more complicated." He started walking toward me. I scrambled backward, my hand hitting something hard and cold on the desk, a heavy brass paperweight. I grabbed it, my knuckles white. "Don't come near me!" I screamed, my voice cracking. Liam stopped, a few feet away. He looked at me, and his expression was almost pitying. "Elara, don't you understand?" he said, his voice soft, which was somehow more terrifying than if he had yelled. "You can't hurt me." He took another step. "But I can hurt you." His eyes flickered down to the collar around my neck. "And so can it." "You've been lying to me," I whispered, the words barely making it past the lump in my throat. "This whole time." He took another slow, deliberate step. "I told you what you needed to hear, what was necessary for the process." I raised the paperweight, my arm trembling. "Stay back." He didn't even flinch. "That won't work, Elara." His voice was still soft, the voice that had told me he loved me under a blanket of stars just a week ago. "You need to understand. The house, the family, we are all connected to it, and now so are you." He lifted his hand, not towards me, but just a small, almost lazy gesture in the air. And then it happened. The silver collar around my neck, the one he'd called a family heirloom, tightened. It wasn't a physical pressure, not like a hand choking me. It was worse. It was a cold, crushing force from the inside out, like my own veins were turning to ice and constricting around my bones. A wave of nausea hit me so hard my vision swam. My grip went slack. The heavy paperweight clattered to the wooden floor. My knees buckled, and I sank down, gasping, my hands flying to my neck. The pressure vanished as quickly as it came, leaving me trembling and sick. Liam was standing over me now. The pity in his eyes made my stomach turn. "I'm sorry it has to be this way," he said. "I truly am. Now, come on. It's better if you don't fight." He didn't have to touch me. I got to my feet, my body moving on its own, following him out of the study and up the grand staircase. Each step was a surrender. He led me back to my suite and closed the door behind me. I heard the definite, final click of the lock. For a moment, I just stood there. Then the adrenaline came back, hot and sharp. Fuck him. Fuck all of them. I wasn't livestock. I ran to the door, twisting the knob, pulling until my shoulder ached. Nothing. It was solid oak, and it wasn't budging. Fine. There was another way out. The window. It was a long drop to the gardens below, but a broken leg was better than whatever they had planned for me. I rushed to the massive window overlooking the back lawn. I fumbled with the latch. It wouldn't move. It was completely frozen, as if it had been painted shut for 100 years. I pulled harder, my nails scraping against the old brass. Nothing. It was like it was part of the wall. "No, no, no, no," I muttered, my panic rising. They thought of everything. My eyes landed on the heavy oak armchair by the fireplace. An idea, raw and desperate, sparked in my mind. I dragged the chair across the room, its legs screaming against the floorboards. It was heavy, solid. It would work. It had to work. With a yell that tore from my throat, I hoisted the chair and swung it with all my strength at the window pane. It didn't shatter. The chair bounced back with such force it almost knocked me off my feet. It hit the glass with a dull, sickening thud, a sound that was all wrong. The glass didn't even crack. Instead, it shimmered, just for a second, like the surface of a pond. A low, vibrating hum filled the air, a deep note that I felt in my teeth. I stared, my mind refusing to process what I had just seen. Glass breaks. That's what it does. I tried again and again, my breath coming in ragged sobs. Each time, the heavy chair just rebounded off an invisible wall, the glass humming its impossible song. Defeated, I let the chair fall. I stumbled back to the door, beating on it with my fists, screaming until my voice was raw. "Let me out! Somebody, please, let me out!" The screaming faded into whimpers. I slid down the door, my head in my hands. It was over. I was trapped. Then I heard it. A soft click. I looked up. The ornate brass doorknob was turning, slowly, all by itself. The door swung silently inward. Liam stood there, his expression unchanged, that same weary disappointment. "Don't make this harder, Ilara," he said. "The house won't let you go. It's part of the family, too." The words hit me harder than the chair hitting the glass. It wasn't a house. It was a tomb. It was a living thing, and I was inside it. I looked past him, down the long, shadowed hallway, and I knew with a certainty that chilled me to my soul that every door, every window was just the same. There was no escape, not from this place. A sound bubbled up from my chest. It started as a choke, then a sob, then it twisted into a laugh, a high, unhinged sound that echoed in the hallway. I was laughing because it was all so perfectly, horribly absurd. My entire life, a blank slate, had been a qualification for this. My love for Liam had been the final interview. He stepped into the room, holding something over his arm. It was a dress, simple and white, made of some soft, flowing material. "It's time," he said, his voice gentle. "The family is waiting." My laughter died. I stared at him, at the dress. All the fight drained out of me, replaced by a cold, heavy emptiness. "You're a monster." He actually smiled, a sad, genuine smile that was the cruelest thing I had ever seen. "No, Ilara, I'm the shepherd. It's my job to find the perfect host, to make sure she's healthy and happy and loved right up until the day of transfer. And I really did fall in love with you, in my own way. That's what makes it work best. The emotional connection. It helps the entity settle in." He led me downstairs. I didn't resist. My feet felt like lead, but they moved. We didn't go to the dining room or the parlor. He led me past the kitchen, to a heavy, iron-banded door I'd never seen opened before. He opened it, revealing a set of stone steps leading down into darkness. The air that rose up was cool, smelling of damp earth, old stone, and flowers. The room at the bottom of the stairs was a cavernous, circular chamber. It wasn't a dungeon. It was lit by hundreds of white candles, their light flickering off the smooth, dark stone walls. Flowers, white roses, their scent thick and heavy, were arranged in massive bouquets. In the center of the room, the entire Astor family was waiting. His parents, Eleanor and Richard, his two older sisters, all of them dressed in simple white robes. They were smiling, not with menace, but with a kind of serene welcome. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. They weren't treating me like a prisoner. They were treating me like a bride. "Let go of me," I said, my voice a dead monotone. I tried to pull my arm away from Liam, but his grip was gentle and unbreakable. "Don't be afraid, child," Eleanor said, stepping forward. She took my free hand, her skin cool and dry. This isn't an end, it's a succession. You won't die. You will become eternal. You will become part of us. You will become more. They led me to the center of the room, where a single throne-like chair carved from the same dark stone sat waiting. They guided me into it. The stone was cold against my back. I looked from face to face. They were all watching me with that same look of placid, loving sympathy, like I was a child afraid of a shot that was for my own good. The fight was gone. Screaming was pointless. My mind just shut down. I sat there, a doll in a white dress, and waited for the end. They formed a circle around me. Richard, the patriarch, began to speak in a language I didn't recognize. It was a low, guttural chant, and the others joined in, their voices weaving together into a strange, hypnotic harmony. The silver collar on my neck began to warm. Then it grew hot, but it didn't burn. A faint, dark light started to pulse from it, in time with their chanting. I didn't feel pain. I felt a dissolving. My memories, the ones I'd fought so hard to keep, began to feel distant. The face of my one friend, Sarah, from the foster home. It blurred, faded, like an old photograph left in the sun. The terror I felt in the study, the desperate fight in the bedroom. It all felt like it had happened to someone else, in another life. My name, Ilara, echoed in my head one last time, and then it too dissolved into the humming energy that was filling me. My sense of self, the core of who I was being unwritten. It was being poured out, making room for something else. Something ancient, vast, and impossibly cold. Through the haze, my eyes found Liam. He stood in the circle with his family, his lips moving with the chant. But he wasn't looking at me with that serene calm. Tears were streaming down his face. That was the last thing I saw as Ilara. Then there was only the quiet, immense power. The transfer was complete. Months later, the woman who used to be Ilara sat in the master study. She wore a severe, elegant black dress, and the silver collar gleamed at her throat, no longer a chain, but a crown. Her posture was perfect, her expression unreadable. She was the matriarch. The door opened and Liam entered. He walked with a slight stoop of deference, his eyes downcast. He placed a manila folder on the polished mahogany desk. "Madam," he said, his voice respectful, "the list of potential candidates for the next cycle." She didn't answer immediately. She picked up the folder, her long, pale fingers tracing its edge. She opened it. Inside was a photograph of a young woman, maybe 19, with wide, hopeful eyes and a background that screamed of foster care and loneliness. The matriarch looked at the photo, then up at Liam. Her eyes were as cold and deep as a winter lake. When she spoke, the voice was not her own. It was layered, ancient. "This one looks perfect."